Well, welcome everybody. You are in the right place if you are looking for the Product Side State of Product Management Maturity webinar. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. While we're waiting, if people can just put where they are dialing into Zoom from in the chat window, we'll have a chance to share and chat, discuss. I'll start with myself.
Wait, where are you today, Kenny?
I'm in Seattle and it's
Mhm.
raining.
I look like I'm in Seattle right now. Also pretty cloudy, gray, rainy here in Austin. But awesome.
All right, we got folks from Pittsburgh and Denver. Nice. Anybody in the Northeast might be snowed in and snowed under, huh? Adrian, good to see you too. Welcome.
All right. Kenny, shall we get started?
Let's give another minute or two. Let's give
Okay.
another minute for everybody to find their way in. Don't want people to be cut off on some of the important early topics.
No one is international right now. That's
No, we're all domestic. All the European folks are taking the month of December off.
oh gosh. Oh, there
There's
we
someone from
go.
Brazil. Thank you, Cesar. Well, now that Cesar's here, we can get started. All right, welcome everybody. So you are dialing into the product side webinar on the state of PM maturity. We have Rina, our CEO, leading the discussion, and I am supporting her.
Right. Hi, everyone. Rina Alexin, as I mentioned, from Austin. Here, excited to share some of the findings that we have with our product management maturity report. And excited to work with you in this way, Kenny. Usually our roles are switched.
So today I will be supporting Rena. I'll be the one chiming in with and interrupting poor Rena with questions and comments and concerns and things that I pick up along the way. So before we dive into our core topic for today around PM maturity, I want to give a little bit of outtake. So let me start by welcoming you and introducing a little bit about product side. At product side, we really know how difficult the job the product managers have to deliver products that people not only use but actually love. So whether it's doing things like aligning stakeholders, predicting customer needs, managing those endless backlogs, we've seen it all. And we're really here. We're here for organizations or individual product managers to be your outcome-driven product partner. As part of our work, we don't just provide solutions, we tailor them to individual needs, to company needs, making sure that the transformation you have is truly successful, right? Anywhere from strategy to execution, we're with you every step of the way. And as noted, we tailor it. We get an understanding of the challenges you face, be that, again, an individual, an organization, and we build our solutions around that. And we have lots of invested experts, people who have spent a long time in product management are really obsessed with your success. So we're really happy to have you all here today, and want to make this as valuable for you as possible. And let's look to the next slide. We want to make it interactive. So first question I always get is, can I watch this recording later? And the answer is absolutely yes. We'll send everybody that attends the webinar a link to the recording after the webinar concludes. And during the session, we really want to hear from you. Please use the Q&A feature that's in Zoom to ask questions. I'll be monitoring it throughout. And as I said, I might interrupt Rena along the way. Don't feel you have to wait to the end to ask questions. Ask them as they come in context. We love engaging with folks in real time. And we also have a chat feature. So please use the chat feature to connect with your fellow product managers that are on this Zoom meeting. You can ask your colleagues questions, share your own experiences, or just cheer each other on. Chat's a great place for you to learn from each other as much as you do from us. And without further ado, I want to get into the topic we have for today. So turn it over. Oh, yeah, one other thing before I turn it over. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. We have lots of content that we post on LinkedIn, usually on a daily basis, but we put things like best practices around product leadership, key conversations that'll help you in your role, how to make it more impactful, and just really an opportunity for you to network with other professionals who share some of the same challenges in product management and goals that you might have. All you have to do is use the QR code on the slide to your right, and you will connect automatically with the Productside LinkedIn page. So now, without further ado, let Rina take it over and share with you our product management maturity report.
All right, thank you, Kenny. And it looks like we have some more international people on. So welcome, everyone. It's I'm really excited about today because we've been working on this maturity report for a while. And so the goal today is really to share the top findings and to talk a little bit about some of the key insights. I'm only going to be diving into insights from the study and also by the job title and industry. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the insights around company size and region, you're going to have to download the full report. But we're going to go and share some of the interesting things that came out of this report. So, what is the Product Management Maturity Report? Well, it's a report that leverages findings from our product side team assessment. The team assessment, it's a survey tool that we've developed that asks about 30 questions. It's geared towards product leaders, and it tries to assess product management capability across different capability areas. Rather than tell you in true product side spirit, I'd rather show you. So with that, we're actually going to launch our first poll. And this is our organization has a clear and consistent product process that is documented, understood, and used across the organization. So please answer this as best as you can, either that you just don't do this at all, you do it rarely with poor quality, sometimes moderate, often with good, and always do outstanding. And a point here is when writing these survey questions, we really had a tough balancing act to try to figure out how do we capture so much about what product management is, which is extremely hard and complex, and still make it a good question. So in this case, for example, if you're in a situation where your product process is documented but not used across the organization, I'd probably write something like do rarely. You kind of have to tick all of those three boxes in order to truly do it outstanding in outstanding quality. All right, so
I think we've got enough folks.
so
Yeah, we got most of the folks here. Let's share the results out. So it looks like do rarely and with pure quality is sort of the nexus of people's response. So
and
hopefully we can get them there.
That's kind of what I wanted to see. It's pretty consistent with our findings. All right, before I get to the findings, and I'm going to try to do this super fast, I need to just orient everybody on the call with what the report is and what the numbers all mean. So first is, I mentioned it's a survey with 30 questions. As you just did it, it is, we use a 0 to 4 scale. In the poll, it was like a 1 to 5, but essentially the 0 to 4 correlates to where the maturity levels are for each of those areas. And for the score, I didn't do math right there, but it's pretty similar to what we found in the product management maturity report. Most companies are sitting somewhere between low and fair maturity. Very few are in the high, like do things great or well with frequency, enough frequency to really merit a high maturity score. But I'm kind of glad we did this poll, Kenny, because it is.
I think the team on the webinar would have scored about a 1.4 on this one.
Somewhere around there, probably. Yeah. Okay, but what do these scores mean and what are the capability areas? So for those of you who hopefully know us at Productside, we like to essentially build on the Productside Blueprint. The blueprint here is a way to view product management, and it's essentially our framework. The framework here has 5 different areas, but we split one of them into 2. That's because we felt, given that this survey is geared towards team leaders, by also splitting context into context and team leadership, we were able to give a little bit more information to team leaders on how their leading and coaching might impact maturity on their team. But essentially, context is, and I think this is something that really sets us apart, Kenny. We talk about context a lot because of how important it is and how it essentially changes how product management is done at various companies. So context covers not just your internal strategy, it's your market, it's your users, and it's why a lot of companies do products so differently. So that's one of the capability areas. The rest
It's
should
it's
seem
the
familiar.
canvas with which we paint
Oh
our
yeah,
product management practice.
right.
So it's
The
important.
rest, I hope, seem familiar to all of you, even if you don't use something like the blueprint. There should be a discover investigate phase where you're discovering problems, one that where you're defining the solutions. Those are still hypotheses, right? Hypotheses of solutions. Create is more than just building the solution. It's also planning ahead, road mapping, defining those KPIs, defining the launch plan. And deliver also goes beyond launch. Actually, that's an important point here. I want everybody to understand that deliver is more than just delivering the thing out to the market. It's that it is successful. So it covers also measuring how that product is doing post launch and iterations and even making end of life decisions. So for demographics, and this one's going to go super quick, I just want everybody here to know there are over 200 responses. We cut, or there were more than this, but we cut many of them. So these are the ones that we focused on. And for the insights, we cut data for any segment that was had at least 10 responses. But for the true insights, we focused on the ones that were larger areas. So for example, US, Europe, Asia, not so much Oceania. We focused on these industry sectors. There were other industries as well that filled out our assessment, but these were the industries we felt had enough answers to kind of have more robust insight. So here's the main product management team maturity report outcome. All of the 6 capability areas are kind of clustered between 1.9 and 2.2. And if you remember on that 0 to 4 scale, we kind of want people to go towards the 3s and 4s, but no, not a single. I mean, there was some smaller segments that achieved fair to high maturity, but most of the segments were somewhere between low and fair. Now, if you were to take this assessment, this is a benchmark, but I wouldn't recommend using it as such. It's not, I don't think the goal of a team assessment is to help you understand where your team is against some other team out there in the ether. Instead, view it more like a fitness assessment where you're trying to baseline your current health and fitness metrics, and you're trying to improve those over time. That's probably the better way to use this. And that is the way that we at Productside also use the team assessment when we work with our clients, right? We help to baseline where they are and then make a strategic plan on where they want to go. Kenny, anything to add here?
Yeah, our hope is to get everybody above a 3 on this at least.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want people to just say, okay, fair, everyone's fair, so let's just stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some of the top findings? Well, let's do another poll. My product management team evaluates product performance to determine which products to end of life. I'm curious how this one's going to end up. So again, it's the same answers. So I'm going to be wondering how many 5s I get.
End of life is always a tricky scenario for product managers, which products to kill. But if you don't kill them, you wind up with something that's way too full.
Yeah. And we're doing this. Okay, so we've got a pretty even split.
They're all at the low end, which is to be expected.
Yeah. All right, I think we can end the poll. We got one that has do often good quality. Okay, we're gonna do a couple more of these polls in this. So again, this is gonna be a very interactive webinar, but they all kind of are
Seems like
gonna
a lot of people don't do this one.
yeah, that's true. And
They'd score about a 1.1 on this one if I calculated it.
I think that sounds just about right. So before we go into why we did the end of life, in addition to the 30 survey questions that we ran, we also asked product leaders of these capability areas, which do you find to be the most important? And 37% answered deliver. So it was, and this was by far the top choice in just about every single segment. And the interesting part, though, Kenny, is that deliver was also one of the most lowest maturities that we saw. It was, I think, if it was deliver in context, I think that struggled, I would say, maybe if I could use that, struggled the most.
Yeah.
In terms of strengths, there were a few. There were a few questions that stood out as being somewhat higher quality. The one that I want to point out is the articulating needs. So this is a good one. That my product management team clearly articulates customer needs and problems to cross-functional stakeholders. I was happy to see that one be high, because one of the challenges that we find with product management is the communication to stakeholders and also the deep understanding of needs. I mean, you have to have both. But seeing this be one of the questions that got the highest rating, still a fair maturity, was promising.
There's
And
room for growth there, but we're doing pretty good on that one, I guess.
yeah, I think so. And honestly, for me, that was a surprise. I was expecting
It
this to
was
also be
surprising.
low. We also found that there were product managers who felt in control of their priorities. So I thought that was also really good. I think this one, because we're not sharing about regions, I think this one in particular was in Europe. But that's also a good sign, because a lot of times product managers feel stuck, that they can't manage their priorities because they have to do what other people are requesting of them. So this one was also a positive sign to see a higher level of maturity.
I think there's more people do a good job of controlling themselves, but they may not necessarily control what's out of order in the company at large.
That is true. That is true. But again, a good sign. We also found that mid-sized companies, and actually it's like everyone has a different definition of what is mid-sized, but essentially teams and companies with employees of at least 50 to 500. So 50 to 500 employees showed comparatively stronger maturity compared to some of the other size bands. I wanted to also bring that up since we're not doing company sizes. But I think we talked about this, Kenny. This probably is because at that level, you have just enough process and resources without all of the major complexity of a larger organization. So that may be why we're seeing that kind of trend in this company size band.
Yeah, I see in the larger companies, the politics starts to come in and have an impact. And in those smaller organizations, there's so much going on and so much swirl that product managers don't necessarily feel in control of them driving their needs. And a lot of it potentially is driven by, a very dominant, potentially CEO who's acting as a product manager in some instances.
That is true. In the smaller firms.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But again, we did see bright spots across every single segment. So no matter which company you are in,
Here's hope.
there are ways to increase maturity. So let's run another poll really quick, and then we're going to go into some of the challenges. So my product management team conducts regular market research to identify market changes that impact their product. Okay, please answer whether you do this, if you always do it, or maybe sometimes. Kenny, this is another one that's an interesting question, because it's not necessarily just about doing market research, but being ahead of your market.
Yeah. And really understanding the impact and the changes that it can have on you. So this one, it actually looks like folks are doing a better job on it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can share results. We got about half the people that do sometimes with at least moderate quality. And we get some people who are doing it often and always. So I think
this was closer to like a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, this one's above 2, that's for sure. Nice. All right. So people do market research. That's good.
I'm glad to glad to hear it.
At least in this
Now,
group.
We did find in our product maturity report that these are some of the lowest scoring questions. So the product management team evaluates product performance for end of life and conducting regular market research to identify market changes that impact their product. With the end of life decisions, Kenny already started talking about it, but we saw this. This is consistently a challenge for product management teams. We also find this in our skills benchmark report. So one of the weakest skills for product managers is an end of life. I think part of this is simply just lack of practice. Not all product managers get that many opportunities to retire products. I've been in rooms with product managers where they're asking us for advice of how to have a conversation with their leadership because they want to retire a product, but leadership does not. I think that sometimes this is a struggle for leadership to say no to revenue that maybe has downstream impacts across the board on the company. So it's definitely a challenge and one I think we're going to talk a little bit more about in this webinar. The second lowest scoring area was conducting regular market research. And as I kind of mentioned it already, it's more about staying ahead of the market as part of the context of product management rather than just knowing today's needs. So it's about more like anticipating future needs. And we did see that in general, product managers did struggle with this. Now, for both of these, and this is kind of, I just went to the next slide. One of the things that you could do to strengthen both end of life decisions and also your market research capability is to go to trusty old PESTL. I think this is one of those frameworks, Kenny, that we teach quite frequently because
Yes.
it's not done often enough at most companies. And it's quite simple. It's just understand the external forces that impact your product. And by thinking about those external forces, you can actually stay ahead of market changes. Kenny, is there maybe an example from just your experience about how
Yeah.
Google has maybe helped teams?
Yeah, keeping that monitor up is crucial. I was working with a company and we basically delivered traffic information to a lot of different other organizations. And early on, our biggest market was this portable navigation devices. Think of companies like Garmin and TomTom and those kinds of things. And early on, they were our bread and butter. They were where we put a lot of our information and made a lot of money from those folks. Until and unless the iPhone came out, and the one thing that completely crippled that market was Google Maps put turn-by-turn directions in their Google Maps app on iPhone. And if we hadn't been ahead of that, we wouldn't have known that suddenly we needed to stop investing in that opportunity, start and focus on some of the other opportunities that we had out there, because that market just crumbled within a course of 2 or 3 months. So you have to stay on top of, and that one, it was a technological change that really completely overturned the market. And if we hadn't stayed on top of it, we would have lost it and started investing in a market that wasn't there anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like a really good example of both end of life as well as staying ahead. So thank you for sharing that. And I think, Kenny, and just like reacting to that story, it's just super important to be able to communicate like the why behind an end of life decision. I think that's why a lot of product managers kind of struggle. It's not
Yeah.
about losing, like all leaders here is we're going to lose a lot of revenue. This is going to be a mistake and my head is going to be on the line. So you have to bring that why of what are we investing in this product that is not serving the business because there are limited resources. Everybody knows this. It's also one of the top challenges.
Well, what it is companies don't realize how much products cost them. The
That's
maintenance, the support, the just putting it on a price sheet in some instances to deflect folks' attention is a big cost. And
yeah.
end of life helps us with that.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful to see more and more maturity on the end of life.
Hey, Rita, there
I
was a
did want
question
to,
that came. There was
yeah.
one question that came in that people wanted. One person wanted to know if there was a correlation of perception of maturity on company ownership type, public, private, private equity funded, startups, those kind of things.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think we asked the private versus public demographic question, but now I think I'm going to add it into our next
Yeah,
version because that's a really good
someday.
cut. I I will say the larger firms are that answered most likely are public,
Public,
and
correct.
yeah, and so I can't speak to I don't have the data to speak to this. I can only have qualitative data from just working with different types of firms. With PE backed, they tend to have challenges around maturity challenges that stem from add-ons, so bolt-on acquisitions,
Yeah.
with just a kind of a misalignment on even on the product process part. With public, there tend to be very large organizations with a lot of interdependencies. So those are the roadblocks that I hear a lot with those kinds of companies. But this is a good question to maybe add to our demographic data.
Great opportunity.
Okay. So I'm going to go into findings right now by title. Again, I'm not going to go into company size or region, but the report certainly has a few more insights there. But the first one that I wanted to talk about was the VP and IC perception gap. So this is something that we found. Now, I think I can. Oh, Kenny, you're going to maybe laugh at me, but I'm going to try to use a pointer. So if you look at this like periwinkle line, does it work?
Oh,
Yay.
there you go. Ooh.
Yay. It's almost always higher than the others. And so even though I mentioned at the start that this survey is geared towards product leaders, it's open to anybody to take. So we also had product managers, ICs take it. And so when looking at this data, it's just, I mean, I think it's pretty fascinating. Look at the blue line. These are the VPs and CPOs. Like, that's a really big gap. And there were enough leaders, right, to do this comparison. Director is interesting enough is kind of in the middle of the road. So it's almost like the more experienced you get, the less or I don't know, the less mature you deem your organization. And this is again, this is company size and industry agnostic. This is just leadership level. So it was just kind of like thinking, why is this happening? Um, it could be a couple of reasons. We're guessing here. We're in the land of guesswork. But one idea is there's just no alignment on what great looks like to begin with. And so it could be that's because leaders are not communicating expectations. It could also be just a complete lack of experience on PMs where they think whatever they're doing is the right way to do it, and they haven't seen enough other ways to do something. So they might feel the status quo is good enough. And overall, this perception gap could be, I mean, in my shoes as a leader, like it could be very frustrating. If I see a problem with my maturity, but the people reporting to me do not, then it's going to be harder for me to motivate change because they don't see the same thing that I see. And that's pretty frustrating. Do you find this to be the case sometimes when you're
It,
talking to leaders versus ICs?
I do. And what it is that a lot of the product managers think that, hey, I'm delivering a whole bunch of results and I'm getting it out there and we're turning the crank every 3 to 6 weeks when however long our sprint is. They don't really recognize that they may not be delivering the outcomes that the company wants. And sometimes the leader sees that, whereas the individual PM does not. So they think everything's going well because they're delivering lots of output, but they aren't necessarily delivering the results that are driven by that output.
Yeah, it could also be a perception gap when answering the survey. They're thinking, like, I do this, but maybe my
Right.
team doesn't.
It
So that
doesn't.
could
Yeah,
also be something
it's
that's
possible.
lending to this, but it's just interesting to see the higher up people go, the more dramatic the difference is.
Yeah.
Still, on the lower end of between fair maturity. But this is I'm also not surprised to see this kind of perception gap. I'm kind of interested in it. Uh, when we talk to like our clients, sometimes they're just not having certain very valuable conversations. And the best way to close this kind of perception gap is actually to talk about it. And that's why I went to this. This is my favorite. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but this is my favorite template from the product side playbook. It's one of them, you know. Uh, and it's the very first template, and it's that way for a reason, because until you get aligned on what outcomes are and what you're doing to achieve them, it's really hard to have a real conversation about, well, why are we not succeeding? And I want everybody on this call. This is going to be available for download for everybody who registered to our webinars from our playbook. But whether you're a product leader or product manager, I say bring this template to your next one-on-one. If you're not clear on outcomes, and even if you are, it's just a really good time of year to reset. Have an open discussion. Like what business outcomes are you collectively aiming for? What are you trying to achieve as a team, and what's getting in the way of that? And I think once you align on business outcomes and also the product outcomes, meaning, what are your customers going to see differently as a result of you working on your product, that's going to support you obtaining those business outcomes. I love this part, the confidence check-in. After you have that discussion, actually grade yourself on like how confident are you that you're aligned, and if it's on the low end, have the conversation again. It's a great way to just constantly have this conversation together to increase alignment, and I think that's going to solve that perception gap, at least one way. And like I mentioned, the template is available to everybody. We're going to send it in the follow-up email. I don't know, Kim, if you can even post it in the chat. If you can, that's great. If not, it'll be in the follow-up email. So Kenny, do you like this template as much as me?
Yeah, no. So Rena, I think as you mentioned, this should be a two-way concept. If you're a product manager on the call that's working with leaders, bring this in and say, please help me answer these questions. And if you're a leader that has a bunch of product managers working for you, again, bring this in and make sure that your product managers understand it and that you fill it out in a way that allows them to understand it. And hopefully you get to that little green dot on the confidence check-in.
That is the goal. All right. Next, I'm going to go into findings by industry. And we're going to launch, I think this is our last poll. Might be wrong there, but my product management team is well disciplined at monitoring product adoption metrics and adjusting strategies accordingly. So curious how people will end up
This
answering
gets at
this
that
one.
heart of the deliver discussion.
I believe this, yeah, I believe this is part of
Yeah.
deliver. Yeah, it makes sense, right? The product metrics. That's probably why we have this poll up, because deliver did not do so well. All right, I think we have a good number. I think,
All right, we can end it and share it.
yeah,
There we go. So it looks like most people do this rarely. They try, but they do it rarely or with poor quality.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not surprised again,
No.
given what I know about the report. So everybody here, if you posted that you don't do this, you are not alone. I just want to let you know. So here's the insights by industry. I'm going to cover a couple of these. But first, I did want to caveat this that, okay, we did include energy here. I'm not going to talk about energy, except to say that it did have N more than 10, but it wasn't a huge as robust as some of the other industries. So instead, I want to talk about healthcare and life sciences and financial services. And the healthcare and life sciences industry, compared to the others, based on the respondents that we had, has some of the higher reported maturities. The ones that are particularly high are here in this light blue and yellow, which are both in the discover section. So that's great. So discover, investigate, and discover, define. I think they were both above 2.3, it looks like. In financial services, and again, if anyone's calling from a bank or insurance company and you're feeling, hey, like my team is not there, many of your peers felt the same. It has some of the lowest maturity scores that we saw. And this context bar about really understanding the internal organization, the market, and the users was particularly low. Both of them struggled in deliver. relatively speaking, but obviously even transportation logistics, ironically, struggle to deliver. But I mean, that's a theme in this report is like deliver is just not doing so well. And a big part of the maturity on deliver is monitoring, as kind of Kenny already mentioned, monitoring the product adoption metrics. So to measure success of a product, you need to know whether or not it's getting adopted and what's happening to the product. And that's probably why we did not get a huge maturity scale on deliver. So what do you do? Now, I just shared a template on having an outcome guided strategy discussion. That's great for setting the outcomes, but then you actually, like I just said, you have to measure them. This template called Measuring Outcomes, it's a simple, but it's a really powerful tool that helps product teams measure their outcomes. I would say it's meant to be a living document, right? Like it's not supposed to be like a one and done exercise. Actually, most of our playbook templates, I think all of them are not supposed to be a one and done exercise for the most part. But this one really helps your team track your business outcomes, product outcomes, success metrics. Those are the indicators on whether or not you're actually meeting those business goals, and the product health metrics. And those are just, I think you said it best, Kenny, it's like your product's not getting in the way. Like it's alive, it's doing well. So it's not standing in the way in terms of its reliability. It's not standing in the way of adoption. In terms of adoption metrics, you would put them in the product success metric, and you would just see like how are people using the product and how are they engaging with it. And using this kind of template will help you in measuring it. I do know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes I think people score low on the product adoption piece because they're not even measuring things, or they're finding it hard to measure. I feel like in the world of SaaS, that should not be the case, like at all. Like everyone should know how to measure, but in hardware products, even though there are sensors, there are companies I think who struggle with this. Like the famous words are, you don't manage what you don't measure. Like you have to figure out a way to do it. And there are so many examples of different teams in various industries who do figure out how to measure outcomes. So just saying I can't get access to the data, it's not gonna fly. Kenny, anything to share about measuring outcomes here?
Yeah, the other thing I tend to see is that people wait until they actually are in the deliver phase, their product's been launched before they actually define some of these metrics. And that's where you run into that problem, Rena, where, hey, we would have loved to measure this, but we can't because we didn't build it into the product. So you just need to start thinking of what success looks like earlier in the process, upstream from when you actually produce the product. So you can actually measure some of these.
I think that is a really good segue to our final thoughts, actually. But when I get there, if anybody on the call right now has any other questions, please, like I said, like we said, put it in chat or in Q&A. I'd love to take them at the end. So we'll leave time for Q&A. Good segue to our final thoughts. Yeah, this one showed up everywhere. Deliver, most important capability, one of the weakest. Okay, well, how do you get better at deliver, Kenny? Like, does it magically happen just by like focusing on metrics? No.
That's too late to start thinking about it.
Exactly. It's way too late. Deliver, it's almost like the outcome of all of the other inputs in the Productside Blueprint. It means that you have to do just about everything else well in order to fix deliver. And so I don't disagree with the leaders and the product managers who said deliver is the most important capability. Like we have to have success out in the market, of course, but that's the result of really strong work across the board. And so it's not enough to just focus on deliver. You're, like Kenny just said it, you're way too late. You need to have strong work across all of the other capability areas. That also includes, this is a hard one, it includes your organization. So we mentioned context is so important to great outcomes for product management. And so I do want to also share to the product managers listening, it's also not just you, it's the culture around your in your company. So context has to be there to support good product decisions. You have to have solid discovery. You have to start with problems. Actually, I forgot the question around PE. Another problem for PE is because they're buying often solutions, they're trying to find new markets or new problems to then go and take those solutions to. And that kind of, I would say, mentality is backwards. It's not going to be very useful. It could waste a lot of time and resources if you do it that way. So yeah, deliver, important, but it's an outcome of solid inputs. And that upfront work is absolutely needed in order to raise the maturity and deliver. I just covered the industries, but I have another point here. And I chose to compare healthcare and life sciences and finance, not just because they were kind of like one is slightly higher, one is really, really low. But both of these industries are some of the most highly regulated industries. That's something that I often hear with product managers. It's almost like there's like a hierarchy of like in which company or which type of product is product management the hardest to do. And those tend to be, B2B, regulated industry, maybe platform products, even more complicated with a lot of users and different segments and personas you have to think through. But here's an example of two really regulated industries, very different results. And we also see it as well internally at Productside. I mean, we work with regulated industries all the time. And so we know that the maturity can still increase even with the constraints around context and regulation. It is challenging, but it doesn't make product management maturity impossible. There are teams doing well. So I do want to end that like on a positive note. It is possible to do well.
Don't use regulation as a crutch, right?
In fact, we like I said just now, we work with a lot of companies who are in regulated industries. And what we do with our clients is, I mentioned it also at the start, it's using the team assessment like a fitness assessment. It allows us to baseline where you are today and then where do you want to go. And that's what we like to do when we start our engagements is get those baseline, not just the skills, but also practices. And then we can rerun assessments and see after we work with the team, well, how much better are they doing? And that's what we did with a company called IATA. They are an association that I think if you've booked an airplane ticket, you probably have seen them. Maybe you haven't noticed them, but they work with airlines and they're an association. And we established a baseline benchmark. We did both skills assessments and maturity assessments. And after completing the optimal product management training and focusing on specific gaps, I believe they achieved 25% improvement in just 3 months. So 3 months after a check-in, there was quite an increase. And there's even a case study now, and I read it. It was a lot. Like, why was there low maturity? Teams were not talking to each other. Like that was, I think just solving that probably helped other things downstream. Marketing team was not involved early on in the planning process, kind of like things were thrown over the wall. And so strengthening strategy, discovery, the go-to-market alignment, all of those practices help them build, and all of those were built also on the Productside Blueprint. But it's just one example of how a good product management process can really accelerate maturity, even in a complex and regulated global organization. So on the left on this slide, though, I do have a sign here saying mind the gap. And these 6 icons represent the 6 lowest scoring questions. So we covered a few of them in this webinar. The end-of-life decision-making, the proactive market research, product adoption. There's also the product process. The other ones that were low were around data and metrics and KPIs and experimentation and validation. If you take all of these 6, don't they just look, except for maybe end of life, which isn't as frequent, don't they just look like core product management, blocking and tackling? Kind of.
They're the things you need to be successful as a product manager, right?
Yes. So none of these should be surprising. They're core product management fundamentals. In a way, I mean, that's what our maturity assessment is supposed to measure. But these are the most common gaps. And so if you are struggling with any of these, again, you're not alone. And the data from just how we work with our clients shows that meaningful improvement, it's possible. It takes time, it takes hard work, it takes a really strong leader. I'll say that, a strong leader as well as strong product managers who want to learn and want to do things differently. But it is possible to change. So what do you do next? If you're on this webinar, hopefully you're wondering, okay, this is what these teams are doing. What should I do? Well, first is to actually do that fitness assessment. Take the team assessment. It's completely free. You've actually answered a few of those questions already, so it shouldn't be surprising or hard. I recommend take it honestly, brutally honestly, so that you get that true fitness assessment. It is not going to work if you're going to say, I'm super, super healthy and it's not going to help, right? So this is a true assessment of your strengths and weaknesses across these capability areas. Then a recommendation is to focus on the product management fundamentals that I brought on the previous page. Those are likely going to be similar across the board where you might need to focus. But use your own team assessment to truly understand, okay, well, maybe I don't need to focus on context because I have very limited control in this area right now. And instead, I'm going to focus on the KPIs and data in this quarter. That's the other thing. It's like focus on the product management fundamentals, but like almost one at a time. You don't want to get overwhelmed and do it all poorly. You want to really focus on one area. And that's when we work with our clients, that's what we do as well. We focus on one and prioritize. Next is close that perception gap. I'm assuming it exists because it just does so often. Take that outcome guided discussion template and use it at your next one-on-one. Build that shared understanding between yourself, your leader, or if you're the leader, you and your product managers. And I think this is a perfect, actually, if you're hearing this webinar later, anytime is a perfect time of year to do this. But right now is also a really perfect time of year, ending 2025 and 2026. And then the last is actually have a plan. Invest in boosting your maturity. And I think that by just taking the first 3 steps, you're already doing that. But find an area where you can find meaningful progress. It is possible. Of course, we know how to do it. Like we help companies do it. But we also know that a great product leader, great product managers, you know how to build your strong product capability. Sometimes it's just having that assessment and having a plan. So, that's also true. The team assessment has tailored recommendations. So recommendations and resources, grab them. We have tons of free resources. So take advantage. In fact, we have our full playbook and the ebook that's actually co-authored by Kenny. And we'll be sharing a QR code shortly, but that ebook is a great read. Like I want to make it mandatory for everybody. I mean, it's kind of mandatory for everybody at Productside, but for our clients to read because it's just a good expression of like how do you do product well, even with the challenges that a lot of companies face. So that's the path forward. Kenny, anything to add here?
No, I think you did a good job. If they can follow the link that we provided to take that assessment, that's the first step. So follow that, and then again, figure out what you will get recommendations from that. Go forward with that. And to your point, Rina, start with our ebook, which is a good resource. I think it's around 100 pages, so it's not a long read. And unlike some business books that you might read, it's not just a whole bunch of ideas and concepts and topics and lists that you have to go through. We actually do it through the lens of a fictitious, yes, company called Wellnest, which struggles with those same challenges that Rina's laid out, and we've provided pathways for the key product management leaders, Heather and Tommy at Wellnest, to actually improve some of those practices, partially through using some of the concepts that we teach at Productside.
I really like this book. I'm just gonna again shout it out. Kenny, you and Tom did a great job here, and Suhail also from our marketing team. But it has the real challenges of like the tension between product and sales and long term and short term, and how do you actually start from nothing. So I again, I think it should be required reading, but that's just me. I'm a little biased.
And it
All
won't take too
right.
long. It can be read. It can be read in a session or two. So,
Okay, and then of course, download the report. Kenny, do you want to take yeah, take this one?
yeah, snap that QR code that we put on here. It provides most of the insights that Rena's provided today, but even more, right? Some of the cuts that we didn't do as part of this webinar, you'll get lots of detail on ways to understand what's going on in the market in general and compare and contrast so you can at least empathize and feel compassion that you're not alone, that some of the challenges you might be facing from a product management perspective are out there in the world, and you can start to see how others are challenged by it and potentially deal with it.
Great. Kenny, do you want us to do some of the slides and then go into Q&A?
Yeah,
Let's just finish up then. Okay.
do the rest of the slide. Yeah, so there's more coming from product side. There's a panel discussion that I'm actually leading next week or the following week with some key leaders, some key product management leaders on what's the key playbook that some of the product leaders are going to take into 2026. There'll be a big emphasis here on AI and the impact of AI, um, both from a security perspective, a data perspective, as well as an experience perspective. And so we've got leaders in each of those realms to provide you some insight around that. And then if any of what we talked about in this webinar is interesting to you and you want to get really deep on it, we've got some classes coming up. One starts next Tuesday, so you need to get on it if you want
I think
to get
registration closes
involved.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the last day of registration, so jump right on it. One of my coworkers, Dean, will lead you through that. We're also teaching the impact of AI on product management, how to leverage AI to be a better product manager, starting in the middle of December. And then we're going to take off for any other optimal product management until the beginning of the year. I'm actually teaching a class in January, and then Roger teaches one in February. And if you happen to be in London in March, you can have Tom Evans give you a deep dive on optimal product management live and in person.
Wonderful. Well, now we can go into our Q&A. So
Yeah,
I don't have chat open. I don't know if there are questions there or in the Q&A box.
I don't see any questions. Well, I got a couple of questions that you might be interested. Someone said that I'm pretty confident about I'm pretty confident that our team maturity is pretty low across the board. But some of it has to do with my organization. It's not mature in product thinking and the rest of the departments and leadership. So what should I do?
Okay. Yeah, we see this a lot where like there could be a product manager, an individual contributor who feels that they know how to do product, but it's just other things in the way. Examples of that I think are kind of touched on in your book with sales having big clients where there's a roadmap and that roadmap gets destroyed. And so the answers of like, okay, we don't do this well is because not that we don't want to, but that we can't. Um, there's no way to address that problem from my perspective without having those conversations. Those outcome guided, that guided template is a great one to just start with, because it sounds like in those kinds of organizations there isn't clarity on what are the ultimate goals that that company is trying to achieve, and how does everybody in the organization build on itself or on each other to achieve those goals. Like product, I'm going to reference our old friend Joe Golly. It's a team sport. So the whole team has to be working together in order to achieve success. And so you have to define where are we rowing towards? What's that destination? And how does each team contribute to that positively before you can really then address, I think, some of the challenges. How about you, Kenny?
No, I think that's what you said is true, but also feel free to share some of those learnings around the key pieces of outcomes with some of your stakeholders. What are we really trying to get at? And make sure that they come at things from a problem perspective and not just a solution perspective. So the next time you hear some feature request from your Your sales manager, your sales director, your VP of sales. Ask that question of what's underlying the customer's request for that specific feature. Understand what their problem is and make sure that they go back and get some of that information as well.
It's a good point.
Another question came up, did the survey include product marketing professionals?
Oh, yeah. So we actually have a whole other category of people who have other job titles. So we do have that data, and I do believe that there were many that were product marketing. Because we wanted to focus the insights of this report on product managers and leaders, we really we put them all in another category. And so those I think are also shared. Um, but yeah, that wasn't the focal point here.
Excellent. All right. Other questions I'm seeing. Someone mentioned that they're fairly earlier in their career. How do they know if something's good or great quality if they're just a junior product manager?
Okay. So I think that one's a hard one because you don't know what you don't know. And we find that a lot also in our skills benchmark, right? When we go and run a skills benchmark report, sometimes the junior PMs score themselves higher and then they take the class and they're like, oh, wait, that's what that meant. And then they end up scoring lower. So I would say it's going to be hard. That's something that you learn with experience. So the shortcut is to then go and test your assumptions with someone with experience. Like, here's tell me how this is good, or tell me how that this is bad, right? So go to your director, your VP, or somebody who is in your network, potentially like a mentor. And I think that's where I would go to first. I think you can also probably train a chat coach to help you advance your thinking as well. That's a good way. That's a good use, I think, of generative AI to help you think of things. But I wouldn't say necessarily generative AI is going to be your ultimate product coach because um, so take it with
Mentors are
you.
important. Mentors are key for junior product
Yeah.
managers. I encourage when I've led large teams of product managers, I've had folks that should just find a mentor. That's the first thing you should do because it's a hard role and it's hard to get it right. And if you have someone else who's been there, done that, you can learn from them and they can start to assess some of the things for you all.
I do. One of the things that I often try to, because it was told to me once, and I thought this was a good idea. If you don't have this, create a matrix for yourself, and it's a 3 by 3 matrix. 3 people who are more senior to you, 3 people who are your peers, and 3 people who are junior to you. Uh, I think if you can create those 9 people, those are going to be the people that will help you grow in your career a lot faster. And the reason why I brought this up is because the mentors will obviously be the ones that are have more experience, but you'd be surprised what you can learn from your peers. And also, you'd also be surprised how much you know by helping somebody else. So that's also a good way to, I think, approach getting better in your career in general.
All right, I've got one more question here.
Okay.
And it's someone who's having lots of challenges. If we get a low score across a whole bunch of areas, where do we start?
Uh-huh. Okay, so for this one, and when we work with our clients, this is frequently the case, is there are, and this is true. Like, this is not just our clients, this is in general, product managers. There are this is hard jobs, so it is not surprising that some of these capabilities are quite low. You need to select which one I think will I hate to say this, but like move the needle the most for your organization that you can see. I would sometimes pick one that's really hard and one that's low hanging fruit so that you can have an early win and then you can also challenge yourself. That's a way that I might go about it, but Kenny might have like a different perspective on how to prioritize.
One of the ones I find, start with context. Again,
Mm,
as I said, it's because it's that canvas that you're painting on. If you've got the wrong canvas, the paint's not going to stick. So make sure you get
okay.
that right, and then some of the other things will start to fall into place because you have to have the right context in order for everything else to work effectively.
That is true, but as I mentioned, sometimes you don't have as much of that ability to change that context, and that might be a long play. So maybe doing a context, and to
Yeah.
your point, start earlier in the process. So maybe focus on discover, investigate first, before you like don't focusing on deliver, as we mentioned, won't really get you there. You have to get the other pieces earlier first done well.
Excellent. I think we've hit the end of the hour. So I want to thank you, Rina, for a compelling presentation. I want to thank everybody for their attention throughout the session that we had. And as noted, you will get links to a replay if you want to share this with some of the other coworkers you have that didn't have a chance to view it. And also you will get links to the ability to take your own test and some of the templates and playbook examples that we shared as part of this session. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the year.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.